area in France and Germany. Over 100,000 square miles. That's more than 2 times the size of Arkansas under floodwater. In Korea, streets became rivers of water and then mud and debris. In China, similar floods, heavy rains, 8 million people affected. In India, again. In South America, in Colombia. In Bogota, the rainfall in 2011 was 5 times the historical average in 1 year. Over 2 million people impacted near Bogota. And here in the United States, the Mississippi River overflowed levees. Levees were breached. Memphis, Tennessee had record flooding. Right off North Dakota in June of last year. The largest flood ever in North Dakota history. Nashville, Tennessee, the Opryland Hotel. I think you all remember that, and it took months for that facility to get up and running again. Downtown Nashville, the once in a 1,000-year rainfall. And geologists and geoscientists use the term like once in a 100-year flood, once in a 500-year flood, once in a 1,000-year. Well, we're starting to get these once in 500-year floods every other year. Just on the Mississippi River alone since 1995, we've had 3 once in 500-year floods. Interstate Highway 24 in Nashville. That's a floating schoolroom, mobile schoolroom going down the interstate. And late last summer, Hurricane Irene hit the East Coast. And it wasn't so much the winds that were so destructive, it was the immense amounts of rains, and it just stayed over and over the East Coast, moving up into New England. In Vermont, massive flooding, tropical storms, tropical-like weather, monsoons. And the governor of Vermont said, you know, we're not supposed to have weather like that in Vermont. And in Asia, the Pacific, Typhoon Meiji was the most intense storm ever to hit landfall. And it hit the Philippines. And to tell you how strong that was, the barometric pressure on that was around 850 millibars. Average barometric pressure is around 990 to 1,000. Most hurricanes are in the high 800s. So it was a tremendously low pressure system causing very, very high winds. And the result of the hurricane also was felt in Taiwan. And I'll just go back to that for 1 second. 45 inches of rain in 48 hours. That's almost an inch of rain every hour. And of course this spread to Europe as well. Albania. Again, all of these areas experiencing record weather events relating to rainfall. Massive mudslides in Brazil. This is a torrent of mud and water coming down. A woman is stranded. Her only hope was to cling to that lifeline that someone had thrown to her. Fortunately, she did make it out, but as we know, thousands and thousands of people all around the world did not make it out of those floods. Brazil is having a flip-flop weather. They're having floods in places where there should be drought, and drought in places where they were used to floods and rainfall. Extreme flooding in Mexico. And so what I wanted to demonstrate here is this happened all around the world. Unusual, historical, extreme flooding and rainfall events. Events like nothing had been seen in recorded history or beyond. And very quickly, I wanted to put this into a graphical form which shows you the dramatic increase in the last 50 years in major flood events, continent by decade. So if you look from the 1950s up to 2000, you can see that trend increasing, whether it be in Europe, or the Americas, Africa, or Asia. In the last 50 years, just the record flood and extreme events are on a steady increase. And if you looked at the global, or a curve of global warming increase and the curve of global temperature increase and CO2 increase, you would also see this dramatic curve upward. And we'll see that in just a minute. So, why are there so many more downpours and floods? Well, it's no longer conjecture or theory. It is now fact that climate is changing and global warming is here. Scientists used to say that we're loading the dice when we're increasing temperature. The odds are changing for extreme weather events. Well, we are actually painting more dice on these, more dots on the dice. So instead of rolling 12s, we're now rolling 13s and 14s. And big storms are becoming both more frequent and bigger. So, a lot of times people ask, was the heat wave or this particular flood or something caused by global warming, the Pakistan flood? Well, Dr. James Hansen says we need to pose that question differently. It's not whether or not global warming caused a certain extreme weather event. What we need to be asking is, if we had not increased our level of carbon dioxide up to present levels, would we have these extreme weather events? And the answer is probably, very probably, no. And so the linkage between the climate crisis and extreme weather events. As CO2 increases, so does the temperature. And I think you've all seen these graphs. Many are familiar with those. And as the temperature increases, the oceans evaporate more moisture into the sky. And the change in global temperature in the last 130 years or so, again, that dramatic increase starting in the 1970s. And look at the increase in heavy precipitation days. And so if we quickly look at the hydrologic cycle, the evaporation leads to precipitation, leads to runoff, back to the oceans, and so forth. And warmer air can hold a lot more water vapor than colder air. So the warmer our air becomes, the more water vapor it holds. So with each additional degree Celsius of temperature, the atmosphere can hold 7% more water. And right now, we have already increased the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere by about 4%. in just the last 30 years. And this is significant. So this is a reason rainstorms and snowstorms are getting bigger and more intense. They have increased water vapor, which provides an increase in energy. And of course, these cause bigger and more frequent floods. As the global temperature increases, the Earth's water cycle intensifies. Bigger downpours, longer and deeper droughts. Evaporation in the ocean into the atmosphere increases even more. Air gets warmer, it can hold more water vapor. Heavy downpours get even heavier. Snowpacks melt earlier. There are longer intervals between droughts. More water evaporates more quickly. And this leads to causing longer and deeper droughts because there's longer intervals between the droughts, precipitation events, and more water also evaporates more quickly overland. Just as water evaporates more quickly in the warmer oceans, with warming land, that water evaporates more quickly, drying out the land. And so now, if we go very quickly again around the world and look at extreme drought events, these are occurring at the same time, in the same period when we're having extreme flooding in China, extreme drought. This is one of the largest reservoirs in China, almost completely dry. People walking for miles to carry water. And this is a map of China, and the reds and browns are areas of extreme and severe drought in China. Notice also the areas of deep blue and light blue are areas of extreme flooding and rainfall. So you have these dramatic